Hi, this is Chats Over Coffee with My Yoga Teacher, a podcast where a comedian and a yoga teacher have a right laugh together, and hopefully you do too. Tried that in a style of a radio DJ sort of thing there, didn't I? But I'm not sure I like it, but I'm not re-recording that. This time we're talking about stress in this episode, so it might be a very useful episode actually, and I hope it is. So, should we get on with it? Because sometimes these bits go on forever, and no one wins when that happens. So, here's the show. You alright?
Yes.
I was going to be very rude to start off with. I couldn't do it, but...
What were you going to do?
I was going to say, oh, how's it going then, bubble butt? Yeah, how's your bubble butt? But, I didn't, yeah.
But then you tried to make the words come out of the mouth, and it just went, meh.
Yeah, I thought, oh God, can I do that to you? I thought, well, you get flashbacks from school, or not school, just kids, you know.
Kids.
But, yeah.
Is it AstraZeneca? Yeah.
I did, yeah, but
yeah, that one's supposed to be one of the you'd get.
Yeah, that's just the Brexit thing.
Is that what people
that's
say?
it. That's the Brexit jab, innit? That's why people don't like AstraZeneca, because they go, "Oh, it's the Brexit one." That's true. That's why there's stigma about it. In all likelihood, you'd like to get a side effect from one or the other, apart from the very rare blood clot thing, I think.
Yeah.
When's your second jab? Have you had it yet?
Yes, I had it nearly 2 weeks ago. Less than 2 weeks.
Oh, that
now.
came quick, didn't it? Oh, that's.
Yeah.
I remember you going off for the first one, like it was yesterday. So are you home free now to do what you want, or are you still?
Well, it's not been 2 weeks yet.
Okay, right. So you haven't gone around licking strangers' faces and all that stuff yet. So. Oh, I should tell you quickly this. On Saturday, the MC, 10 minutes before the show on Saturday, had an argument with someone. I don't quite know what happened, but he just stood up and went, "I'm off," and just left. So we just didn't have an MC on Saturday.
So what did you do?
Well, the middle act introduced me, who was going on first, and then I had to introduce the middle act. But it was extremely confusing for the audience that were not expecting that. So, because they were like, "Oh, this guy's a host," and then I'm like, then I come on and it's a different host in the second section, and they're like, "Well, we've seen him, so what's this about?" And then so it was a bit confused. I think we got away with it. I mean, I was certainly fine during my spot, although there were some dickheads there, but there was just like put the stag party right at the front so that they're right there, so that they like talk to you like and think it's about them, obviously. So it's just like they get a taste for it, and they're just like, you've got to stick them. No, you got to stick them right in the corner. Right, so they just don't think it's anything to do. Like you go, "Oh, is anyone celebrating anything?" And they go, "Yes, it's a stag." I go, "Oh, well done, mate. I bet your wife's shagging some bloke tonight. Ha ha ha." and then round of applause for the stag, and then that's it. Don't talk to them again. Right? Don't have them right in front of me, so that they're like, because then they think it's the show for them.
It's funny though, because it's like it must be a personality thing, because I would never go to a show and try to sit at the front unless it was like, I don't know, a play, a non-interactive show. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I do not want to be at the front. I don't want anyone to think like, "Oh, let's talk about her." No. Don't look at me. Don't talk to me. I'm here to watch you.
If you're not at the front, you won't be able to see, would you, though? Cause,
ha ha. Well, if we're all sat down, it should be fine. I'll bring a phone book and sit up on something.
All right. Do you want to talk about stress and then?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So you did a stress workshop on Monday, which I didn't go to because apparently I'm not going to things anymore.
Yeah, apparently.
No, I'm very busy man. So
yeah,
I am busy. I had a gig on Monday and Sunday, and all weekend, and I'm going to London on Friday. So maybe a stress workshop would probably be ideal in some respects there, wouldn't it? But I read a book recently, which I mentioned before. it's called Behave, by a neurologist or a biologist of some sort, and he said in it, like, he's talking about how, you know, human behaviours work, and so he explains how the body works and how neurons work and how neurons interact with hormones and blah 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 blah, all that stuff. And he basically at one point said that stress was one of the worst things that you can really do to your body, because it just disrupts the whole functioning of everything. So I presume you know more about that.
Well, I won't know more than him.
Well, no, not more than him, but I couldn't get him on this. So
oh, damn.
Yeah.
You'll have to settle for me.
It was a really good book, you know. But one thing that really irritated me about it is that he made a joke on every single page, and so he'd make, but it wouldn't be like in the prose or whatever you call it, not on the page. It'd always be an asterisk somewhere on every page, and at the bottom he'd make a little aside about like every page. And it just interrupts the rhythm of how you read something, because if you keep having to now I'm going to the bottom of the page to see his stupid little quirky little comment, then I have to go back up again. It really disrupts, like, it's
a bit of an odd way of writing, isn't it? Normally people sometimes put little quirky bits in brackets or something, you know, like when you say, oh, you know, being flexible with your timings as a yoga teacher, haha, pun intended, you know, or something like that, you know, those kind of little things.
Yeah, that's what I'd do if I was editing it, but I just think he couldn't help himself. Like, sometimes he was very funny, but he just couldn't help himself.
Oh, dear.
Anyways, it was a good book, but now I probably can't recommend it because now he knows I'm snagging him off a bit. But I learned a lot from it, but I also was like, oh, Jesus, man.
Maybe it stands out so much to you because you're in the comedy world, but like someone maybe who isn't bothered about it or doesn't know much about it might just like be like,
they just probably thought it was colourful, maybe, or something else. But I just saw it as a character flaw, because I know enough people that are comedians that have the character flaw of having to make jokes all the time, and have people like, you know, well, most of them basically. So apart from me, of course,
apart from you, who are perfect,
got his head screwed on me. So don't know.
But what I was going to say is like you were saying, it's probably one of the worst things you can do for your body. But yeah, absolutely. So, I suppose we should start from the beginning. So there's two ways we tend to use stress in the English language. One is you can put your body under stress by like literally running or something. So like your heart rate is going, you're moving really fast, doing something that's like cardio kind of style, and you're putting stress onto your body, or you stress the muscles by making them burn or something like that. That's like a very physical term that you use in the fitness industry, I think. Maybe a bit for doctors if you're trying to do tests and stuff, but like for the most part, that's like that. Stress, as we see it on a normal, regular, day-to-day basis, is more like when you're worried, anxious, scared even, you know, those kind of like stresses. And they stem from your sympathetic nervous system, which we colloquially call your fight or flight response. So traditionally, if you were to walk down in your living room, there was a lion, and you're like, oh shit, there's a lion in my living room. You get like
I told him not to leave the door open again.
Yeah, exactly. Damn it. Yeah. You know, you get flooded with like loads of like adrenaline and other hormones. I think it's like cortisol or anyway. No, not cortisol. That one's a rest one. But anyway, so you get flooded with really, really strong hormones that turn your brain on, basically. And they basically make it so that all of the other functions are now secondary to surviving the next 10 minutes with this lion in your living room. Like, it is that important that is the only thing that matters. Which is why, like, if you have a really strong reaction to something, like maybe you see on TV or movies when someone comes across a dead body or something horrendous and then they vomit, and because that is your body saying, like, we don't want to process food right now, we need to focus on survival. So a reaction to really engaging your fight or flight response could be to vomit, because that you don't want to be processing food. You don't want to be putting any energy into anything else. So, like, it's really intense. It can be a really intense reaction in some situations like that. So basically, I've got it written here. The body shuts down systems that aren't needed for immediate survival. That is it. If you don't need it in the next 10 minutes, nothing's happening with it, which obviously is really quite dangerous because you need you need your stomach. You need your organs to be working properly. So traditionally, and I say traditionally, but maybe that's not the right word, anciently, originally, if we would have those kind of situations, you would come across something, life or death, next 10 minutes, sort it out. You run, you fight, you die. That's it. That's your options. There's no other options. So the adrenaline and the other...
obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But like,
it's
you know, the chemicals...
lion, isn't it? It was,
I can wrestle a lion.
It's nothing. Yeah. Have they ever played Jonglers on a Friday, Saturday night?
So those things, that's what you're wanting. That's, you know, you sort it out. In the next few short period of time, the situation is done. And that's it. And then you can go and you let it go. There's nothing scaring you. There's nothing there that slowly starts to ebb away as your body clears those chemicals. It's important to realize your body has different ways of clearing those chemicals out. So yeah, obviously some can go through like your liver and your kidneys and out through your urine, but also through your other ducts. So sweating and crying releases the same chemicals. So if you don't cry when you feel like crying, the chemical's still there. So it has to go somewhere. So if you don't cry it out, your body has to take it back in and send it all the way to like your liver and process it that way. So there's nothing really wrong with crying. If you feel emotional, it's a good way to release those hormones and let them go, assuming again, it's, you know, you feel okay after you cried a bit. Yeah, it's a way of releasing.
That's interesting because, you know, there's like obviously, especially stiff upper lip sort of attitudes of like not crying and like, yeah, that's interesting that suppressing that. So
absolutely. And the other thing about specifically around crying is when you hold on to, like if you hold yourself back from crying, which is fine, it's not the end of the world if you don't want to cry, especially if you're out in public or on a bus, or I mean, there are situations in life when we're going to hold it in because we don't want to make a spectacle or something. And I mean, yeah, I mean, if you want to cry on a bus, go for it. I don't judge. But if you don't, that's fine too.
You might get a seat next year if you do.
I know, right?
Yeah, that's the best.
But I mean, like, you know, I'm not there to judge individual circumstances, but like, if you do hold on to the tears and you don't cry, there's also a chance that your body will store that chemical rather than put it through processing to release it. So it'll go into the deep tissues in the muscles and be stored like chemically. It'll just be there. So there is a theory or talk in the yoga community that when you stretch your hips and when you have a hip class and you go to a yin class and you're doing all these deep stretches, that people cry. And they have no idea why they're crying. And they're like, why am I crying? And, you know, there's like tears running down their face or whatever. And they're not like bawling. They're not like, you know, there's just their face is just, they're crying. The tears are coming. And there's an idea that is because you have released that chemical from deep inside a muscle by literally stretching and pulling and opening it. So they say, like, don't worry about it. It's okay. I mean, obviously, sometimes when we relax, we can remember events or things that trigger an emotional response, but assuming it's not from something like that, then it could be more chemical related, where like you've actually gotten to a spot where you've stored a little bit of those tears or something, and now they're coming.
No, is that just theory, or is that like?
You do store.
It does happen though in hip class.
Yeah.
You've seen
it
happen,
it does happen. Okay. Yeah. It does happen. Yeah, and you definitely store chemicals in your muscles, but I would say that the one that I've researched myself was quite clearly saying that you store stress hormones in your muscles and in your fat. So that is why it can be really difficult to lose weight if you're overweight, because you'll start to release those chemicals into your body and it makes you feel like crap because you're like feeling stressed for no reason or feeling angry or something and you're not quite sure why. And it can literally be because when you were angry, you stored it into your fat. Now you're losing the fat, your body's processing that, and it can make you feel bad. It's a bit of a horrible catch-22 to try to lose weight. You know, it makes you feel worse and then you want to eat.
I've never heard of that before, but that doesn't. That's got a basis in science, is it?
Yes. Yeah.
Because that could sound like something that someone makes up on a yoga sort of.
No, I would be absolutely shocked if that was debunked at some point in time. That is definitely factual science there, from doctors. I've not heard
You're
anyone
not a
say
doctor, but
I'm not a doctor.
yeah. So,
but that is a thing.
Just remind everyone that.
Yeah.
I didn't say it. She said it, not me. I didn't.
Oh God, this is where it all comes out. It's all crap. I'm all wrong. Everything I thought was right.
Any doctors, it's at Kayla McCormack Yoga.
Yeah, honestly though, I'll be the bigger person. If I am 100% wrong with all of this, please do tell me, because I don't want to be wrong for the rest of my life. Okay, so back to the thing. We've talked about your fight or flight. We've talked about how important it is for the body, especially in serious situations, to put all that energy. So those chemicals go to your muscles and the limbs so that you can run faster and do things. People say about having an adrenaline rush. It is a thing, I mean, the opposite to your fight or flight is your rest and digest. That's what we tend to call it, but it's your parasympathetic nervous system. And your parasympathetic nervous system, as the name implies, governs resting and digesting. It also governs other things like sleep cycles and stuff like that.
So it's repairing sort of stuff, isn't it?
Repairing, healing. Healing is governed by your parasympathetic nervous system. So you won't tend to heal properly if you don't rest properly and things like that. So what you were saying about it being quite bad for you not to have that rest is, yes, it's really important to make sure that you rest. The catch is that these days, we don't have that living room experience where there's a lion. You come downstairs, there's a lion in your living room, and then that's it. It's gone. And then there's no more worries. That's
Western privilege, that is, isn't it?
Yeah, Western privilege. We don't have that lion in our living room. But, we have other issues. You go for an interview. It's uncomfortable. It's stressful. It makes you anxious. These are natural things. Hopefully, at the end of the interview, it goes, and that's that. If you have a situation where you feel continuously stressed, whether that's whatever word you want to use for stress, anxious, scared, whatever, if you feel that way continuously because maybe your job is high pressure and you're not getting enough time away or whatever it is, or maybe it's something else, maybe it's something unrelated, like maybe you feel pressure of society to have the perfect family or the perfect house or whatever, something like that, something outside. If you're constantly stressed, it's quite normal, or quite common, I should say, to feel this chronic stress and not even know that you're feeling it. So you get to the point where, what do they say? The fish in the water doesn't know the temperature?
Like the boiling frog thing.
I'm not sure about the boiling frog. I'm just talking about a happy fish in a happy water.
Right. No, there's an analogy, isn't there? The frog in a pan, isn't it? Mm. And if you turn the temperature up slowly, the frog doesn't know it's slowly being cooked.
Right. Oh. That's pretty horrible. Is that not because it's
I'm not saying it's nice. I'm not like,
Oh dear.
No, because it doesn't know the temperature because it goes up slowly, so it doesn't realise that it's. Yes. And then that's.
That is very good analogy. I wouldn't say that in the middle of a class because that kind of makes me feel like you're cooking frogs. But assuming, but yes, that's the exact same idea. That you gradually get more and more stressed, or more and more things pile on in your life, and before you know it, you have this constant level of stress. And we can call that chronic stress, that kind of thing. It can cause problems. Obviously, the obvious ones are like sleeping and headaches and then problems like that. Then it can go quite bad. You can get depression. You can get issues with your liver. You can get, just like proper full-on health issues that seemingly might not be caused from stress, but are if you have them for this extended period of time. And like I was saying, you might not even know you're stressed, because it's been so gradual or so slow. It's not like something major happened and then that's it, you're stressed and you're having a hard time letting go. It usually creeps up on you. But the point is that you can, change can be brought by willful, sustained action. There you go. That's what I wrote down. So this idea that if you continuously meditate, or practice resting yoga, so yin or restorative or something like that. Even to some extent, any yoga, though I would steer clear of things like Ashtanga and Bikram, hot yoga, and vinyasa. It's not going to be very relaxing. Not unless that 2 minutes at the end when we're having shavasana. But I would say, for the most part, it's not. But, if you can find a way to bring that into your life, it can be very relaxing. And I know people do things like, oh, I like to read a book, or I like to go, soak in the bath or something like that. But I would say that you want to do something, if you can, or build up to the idea of doing something where you're not being stimulated. So like literally lying flat, or not necessarily flat, but lying supported, completely relaxed, and just breathe. Just allow yourself to try to relax. And this, we call this conscious relaxation. So making the choice to relax. So like what we do at the end of maybe a more normal classes, where I'll go through the body and relax every muscle part, or what you might do in a yoga nidra, where you kind of bringing the mind into a more relaxed state. And then once you've done it once and you manage to relax completely, you'll know what level you're at, and you'll know more. You'll have an idea of how much you need to do that to manage the stress in your life, and how often you need to try to relax. And, if there's any other techniques, like just mindfulness can sometimes help, noticing the weather, what's going on, trying not to rush through life, trying not to grab a banana on your way out or something, rather than having a meal or whatever, that kind of thing. Yeah, I think that basically covers it. But I will say this. In yoga in general, so I was saying like try to go for relaxing classes, but for the most part, any yoga class is going to help you build that connection between your mind and your body, specifically on a neurological level. Not just like, oh, I feel more connected. Like it will actually make you more connected to your body. And once you have that connection, you are more likely to notice when you are stressed. So any yoga class can help you start to identify that stress and that connection. And then you can, build your resilience. You can learn techniques to help you understand why you feel that way, and if you need to take some action. And sometimes that's full on, I need to relax and lie down. And sometimes that's just like, I need a breath, give me a minute, and you can decide for yourself.
I think that sort of happened to me, but I'm not 100% sure now. I'm in it for the hard classes, aren't I? Generally.
Yeah.
Because of having a sedentary lifestyle, I like to like make sure that everything's moved and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not 100% sure whether I must have more connection to, like, if I notice something's up, I probably do know more. I don't know. But I did used to be a lot more tense and anxious before doing it. And I'm sure that would have, I don't know whether it got stored in parts of the body or something like that, but I used to always be very sort of hunched forward in particularly my left sort of chest or area. And it used to be, I don't know, I think I used to have a lot of tension there from somewhere or other, but that's just fine now. I don't know if that's stress related or...
There is a connection to posture and how you feel. You're more likely to round through the back and collapse through the chest, so bring the shoulders together, if you're feeling specifically anxious or afraid, because that is like a way to protect yourself,
That's a way that people that are more dominant individuals will like sort of see that, and it's like
it's a way of targeting.
Yeah, it's like, because that's a subservient way of being, like hunched over, and like it's an afraid thing, and people that are like strut their chest out, and they're like Mick Jagger or something, like, like walk along. That's like a dominant pose, isn't it? I'm sure chimpanzees probably is very much like,
oh god, chimps,
like that.
Don't get me started on them. I watched a chimp documentary. It was horrible.
They are absolutely brutal chimps,
I hated it. It was awful. I watched it, I could not, but oh my god.
That's one thing to remember, though, that we are chimps to a large degree, aren't we?
I'm not a chimp.
We are.
You can be a chimp.
Common ancestor. No. Oh, thanks. Yeah.
But yes, in general, posture and stuff is related to how you feel.
But then we learn a lot about humans from looking at chimps and the behaviours and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and for better or worse, they're not all positive behaviours, but it's not. No. We can't kid ourselves to think that we're full of, like, we're not. I heard a quote. I know where it's from. It's probably some problematic podcast I was listening to, but the quote was, "We're not fallen angels with risen chimps, and I thought I quite like that because
I quite like that.
because
That's
people
good.
have the attitude that we're sort of were perfect, like in the old Christian,
made in God's image.
we were perfect and we fucked up because we ate an apple or something. But it's actually we're actually just like the opposite with animals that became more conscious of morality, I suppose.
But yeah, so with posture, that's another way you can. So there are breathing techniques to trick your mind. So one thing that I probably should mention about stress is one of the main connections between your consciousness, so your choice of how you feel, and your parasympathetic nervous system. So we know that's your rest and digest system. You don't choose to digest your food. You don't have to think about that. You don't have to think digest. It just happens. But one of the ways that, I think people tend to call it the bridge between your conscious choice and your parasympathetic nervous system, and kind of activating that, is your breath. Which is why when you were a kid, they always say, like, oh, take a deep breath if you feel angry and stuff like that. Is because it does actually help. And a really easy one to do is just inhaling a nice, long, slow breath, take a little pause, and then exhale a longer, slower breath out. And just keep doing that for 3 minutes. And it will make such a big difference to how you feel. And that is because that is that choice. That is that connection between, that is how you can make a difference. That's what makes you not a chimp.
Right.
Is you can choose how you want to breathe. And in a similar vein, how you stand can make you feel different as well. When we collapse in on ourselves, in that sense of fear or anxiety or something, we make the lung capacity small. We can't take deep breaths. So to be able to take a long, deep breath, you must stand up straight. You must put the shoulders back, and you must lengthen through the spine. So having a nice open chest, or a very neutral, straight spine, can also make you feel better, just because you might be subconsciously taking deeper breaths as well. And obviously things are flowing easier. The more you round, the more you bend joints, the more into a little ball you make yourself, the less likely, the blood is flowing smoothly. When you're straight and stood up, there's nothing, there's no corners or creases, and I don't know. I'm kind of oversimplifying that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, you're not a doctor. So.
I'm not a doctor. I give up.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on any of this. Thank you.
Yeah. And also, there's something like, you have to obviously tackle some things that sort of, if it's work that's stressing you out, you have to just not do so much work or something.
Well, I think a lot of the time it can be mindset more than, especially in I would say in the West, I feel like to some extent there's a chance that it's not life or death at your work. It's very unlikely, unless you're a doctor, obviously. But assuming you're not actually working in a situation where it is life and death, assuming it's just more normal kind of work, you have to think to yourself, those kind of questions, in 5 years, is this going to still be bothering me? Or, when I'm on my deathbed, am I going to look back and think, oh, God, I wish I was, what did that guy say? Well, I wish I used to work more.
Yeah, who's that? There is someone that does that.
Yeah, someone said that recently. I saw it on TV, and I can't remember who it was, so I do apologize. But they were like, oh, if you're on your deathbed, are you going to look back and think, oh, I wish I was at work more? No, you're not. Not normally.
But there's just, especially now, I don't know whether working from home's probably made it even worse. People feel like there is that, oh, I'm always contactable and I'm always, so you don't clock off from
maybe
work.
Making boundaries more clear for yourself, even if you don't communicate that to other people, you could make those boundaries for yourself. I have to try and set some boundaries for myself, because obviously I can be continuously contacted and I run my own business. So I have to make that decision. If I get emailed at 10:30 at night, I have to make sure that I don't reply. I have to not read it. Or if I do read it, if it's a short email, whatever, then I have to make the decision that I'm not going to reply at 10 o'clock at night to my work emails. But it's hard. It's hard when you're running your own business, or people want to book things with you or whatever.
Yeah, I get that. I get, if I get a booking email a stupid time, I feel like, well, I'd best reply, because if someone else might get there and
exactly.
So.
Or what if I don't reply and someone else takes it instead, or something like that?
Some offices don't they have to get that mindset where it'd be you wouldn't want to be the first person to leave after 5 o'clock, even though you're not getting paid after 5 o'clock, but you want to be seen to be the one that's still working I always used to just be like, well, I used to leave early, but like, if I could. But some workplaces have that. Well, I used to work for the NHS and not in a clinical way, but there'd be people often working past their hours, and they would say, "Oh yeah, it's because things have to get done." But I sort of think, no, you could have still, like, you know, it's just a matter of prioritizing to me sometimes.
Yeah.
Like,
I do think, like, there are exceptions when you're working from home, especially. It's easy to have, like, a long break in the middle of the day around your lunchtime or something like that. And then if you feel like, ooh, I'll just make that up a little bit. You know, maybe I had an hour and a half instead of an hour, and I'll work an extra half hour-ish today and kind of, you know, even things out. Like, that is flexible working. Most offices don't mind that kind of thing. And I think that can be quite healthy, because it means you're taking the rest or the time to have a break from something when you want it, not when they think you should have it or something. So if you're taking a break in the middle of the day because it's sunny and you're going to go for a walk after your lunch, then hey, good on you. As long as that's all right and you're not in a meeting or something, go for it, you know, and then make it up later in the evening if you feel obligated to do that.
If you're not a surgeon, it doesn't necessarily...
I know, right? Yeah. Please don't leave the surgery because you fancy it. But, you know, like, assuming all, like, more office-y kind of vibes and stuff, like, I think that's really good. I think that's fine. But it's also really easy to overwork then as well, definitely. And then you have the idea that, like, if you should work more, you should work for free. That has always bothered me. If you get a salary and you're expected to do a certain amount of work, not in hours, actual work, like, that is like, okay, maybe that's so vague that who's to say? You know?
That sounds like a sweatshop mentality.
I know, exactly.
Get 200 of these cardigans made and then you can go home.
Yeah, or if you're commission or something, you know, it's a bit like, God, okay.
Yeah, but that's a contractual per basis, isn't it? It's not the same, is it? So.
But I feel like if you're expected to work 37 and a half hours, work 37 and a half hours. The only person you are hurting when you work more than the hours you are contracted to work is yourself and everyone else. Because you are setting a precedent for everyone else. People that can't work, people that are stressed, people who don't want to do it, they feel like they have to do it. Because even though maybe you're not bothered, but everyone else then has to do it. So it's not really, I don't know, I've always had this thing like, no, don't work over. Don't work for free. It's very bad. Especially if you work in stores. Stores pay you opening hours and you're there before and after the store closes. No, don't do it. If the store closes at 5, you leave at 5. You lock the door and you walk out. Oh, but there's still people in the store. Well, tough shit. They should pay you until after 5 then, shouldn't they? Like, that is my opinion. I know it's probably a bit, I don't know, controversial.
It's all well and good for two self-employed people that don't have bosses telling people that do have bosses what to do.
You have to stand up. This is why we have unions. You have to stand up for yourself. If you're doing work where you're not getting paid, you must put your foot down. And if you get fired, keep going back and tell everyone else to do the same until they fire everyone. This is just taking advantage of people who are desperate for a wage. It's illegal. It is illegal. And people are worried that they'll get fired if they complain about working that extra 15 minutes every day. Because they'll be like, oh, well, I have to work this extra 15 minutes or they might fire me. And it's like, it's illegal. It's illegal for them to ask you to do that. So you shouldn't. But they get away with it.
Yeah, because it's like social pressure, isn't it? That's the thing, so that's just wondering if there's anything else you can do to just relieve stress that isn't like go to your classes or something. But
yeah, I would say just breathe. Pay attention to your posture. I mean, the common things that you'll look up instantly is like find time to spend time in nature, and I would definitely say spend time in nature. Everybody loves the smell of cut grass, right? You know, it's because there's a real connection there. Go spend time in nature. Find a big tree. Go have a sniff. Smell grass. Whatever it is you want to do. But, like, that does make a difference as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, at the moment, you can't go anywhere without loads of people there, aren't they? Because no one can travel abroad at the moment. So everywhere, so nature is just filled with people, isn't it? Like,
oh god, go out at night. Nobody's
nightmare.
Out at night. I go out at night these days. I feel like some sort of weird, like a dusk animal. They have a name. What are they called? Animals that come out in dusk and dawn.
Hedgehogs.
No, you're not hedgehog. I mean all animals that come out at dusk and dawn.
Nocturnal.
No, nocturnal is night. Diurnal is day. And then there's another name for animals that come out only at dusk and dawn, like deer and stuff and hedgehogs.
There's an actual name for that type of animal, is it? That's interesting. I'm trying to think.
If you look it up, I'm sure Google will tell you.
So what do they do? Do they go at dusk? Do they sleep twice in the day then?
They rest during the middle of the day. Yeah, I don't know if they actually sleep, but yeah, they rest during the middle of the day and they sleep at night. Yeah.
Right, and they're up early and they sleep during the day a bit, and then they.
And then they're up late into the night a bit. Yeah.
All right. Sure, they're not old people. Right. Old people. That's an old people's home, isn't it? Get up at like 5 and then nap in the day, and they're up again later because they need a piss.
Need to exercise their pelvic floor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, right, you should probably go, should you?
I do need to go. Yeah. I need to charge my things and set up for yoga.
Okay, well, thank you. So, should we stop? And then
yes, I will stop this.
Thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that. Maybe you found it very helpful. But I hope you was entertained. To Ali G there. If you'd like to come back, then listen to another one in a couple of weeks. Then there will be an episode in a couple of weeks, and you'll get to find out why I think dinosaurs and birds would not get along. If you enjoy the show, you can tell friends, you can share the posts, and you can give us ratings and reviews and all those kinds of things if you so wish. Or if you just want to follow us on the internet, if you don't already, we're both on Instagram and Twitter, Twitter's rubbish, as I've said before. No one shares my jokes enough on there. Our handles are in the show notes, I think, or you just search for our names and you'll find us. And hopefully we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Have a lovely interim period. Goodbye.